Good afternoon to all the participants.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, participants. On behalf of Indian Railway Institute of Finance,
Good afternoon.
I extend warm welcome to each one of you for today's webinar on appropriation accounts. And to take up this session, we have Shri K. Damodar Prasad, who is retired senior AFS South Central Railway.
Good afternoon, sir.
And it's over to you to take up the come in the session.
Thank you, Mr. Benher. हमारा अपेंडिक्स 3A स्पेशल एग्जामिनेशन का जो कैंडिडेट्स है, आपको सभी को स्वागत है एंड आई विश ऑल द बेस्ट इन दिस एग्जामिनेशन. All of us, we are aware that after closure of March accounts, after sending the final account current, हमें कुछ annual accounts बनाना पड़ता है. Regarding these annual accounts, in the accounts code, it was written that number 1 is capital and revenue accounts. Second one is finance accounts. तीसरा डेट हेड रिपोर्ट. ये डेट हेड रिपोर्ट के बारे में हमें बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे. ये डेट हेड रिपोर्ट में जोनल रेलवेज दे हैव टू गिव certain certificates. So because of that, the debt head report, not only the audit will give, even accounts officer also has to give certain certificates. That is the beauty or importance of that debt head report. So, and that debt head report also will be verified by audit. So as a part of annual accounts, we will be preparing, after closure of the financial year, we will be preparing capital and revenue accounts. एक, दूसरा finance accounts, तीसरा debt head report. ये पूरे के जानकारी हमारे को अकाउंट्स कोड में मिलेगा. और चौथा एंड वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट आइटम ऑफ एनुअल अकाउंट्स इज अप्रोप्रिएशन अकाउंट्स. ये अप्रोप्रिएशन अकाउंट्स के बारे में हमारे को पूरे के पूरे जानकारी हमारे को मिलता है फाइनेंस कोड चैप्टर 4 में, फाइनेंस कोड में मिलेगा. तो नाउ entire session, today's session is completely dedicated to the appropriation accounts. That is the last item of the annual accounts. And this is from our examination point of view also very, very important topic. How, what are appropriation accounts? What is the importance of appropriation accounts? How they are prepared? And how the variations will be explained, or sometimes what are the appropriation accounts, and write about annexures to the appropriation accounts. So like this, certain essay questions also will be coming. So in this presentation, I try to give almost all the information related to appropriation accounts. हमारे को we know that the funds are got from the Parliament voting and appropriations sanctioned by President. After that only we will be getting the funds that are required to be spent during the year by means of budget orders. This is one way of parliamentary control. But this parliamentary control is not conclusive, or the parliamentary control is not complete only by getting the funds. But it will be complete only when we give an account of what we have spent. Then only हमारे को ये पार्लियामेंट्री कंट्रोल का कंप्लीट साइकिल हो जाएगा. जो साइकिल है वो कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. So that is why the appropriation accounts are very, very important from that angle, that is the parliamentary financial control, which we achieved, which will be, we got it by means of preparing our annual budget and presenting in the parliament and then getting voting of the parliament. Now, again, we will, after completion of the financial year, when we give an account of what we have spent, where we have spent, that completes the parliamentary control on railway finances. So that will be, that is through preparation of appropriation accounts. So the means of that completing the cycle of parliamentary control is preparing the appropriation accounts. These appropriation accounts, yeah. So these appropriation accounts are actually, appropriation accounts are actually comparing the actual expenditure, because all throughout the year we may have had some thousands and lakhs of transactions, both earnings and expenditure. So there, what we will be giving is actual expenditure, whatever we have incurred. That expenditure, it will be compared with the grant voted by Parliament or appropriation sanctioned by President. So that statements will be prepared. That is one important aspect of this appropriation accounts. So securing parliamentary control. Then sometimes we will be having some excess over the grant. In the budget sessions, we have been told that no amount can be incurred without the prior approval from Parliament, because 112 of the article of the Constitution also provides for the same. So we cannot take even a single pie from Consolidated Fund of India without the Parliament approval. Having said that, what I would like to say is that then do you mean to say that the railway expenditure will be always will be within the grant that is given? No. Many a time, thanks to the merger of our railway budget with general budget, earlier we used to have each and every abstract, it is a grant. So there will be some excesses and there will be some savings. We used to get scathing attack from the Public Accounts Committee as well as from the Controller and Auditor General of India also for the excesses. Okay, leave about the savings. But when excess happened, how that will be regularized? There should be some mechanism to regulate that particular expenditure. How can it be done? That will be through submission of these appropriation accounts. So this is another important feature of appropriation accounts, importance of appropriation accounts. So wherever excesses are there, those excesses will be recommended by C&AG as well as scrutinized by PAC, and they will recommend that let these be regularized. So Ministry of Finance, what they will do is they will prepare excess grant demand. One demand for excess grant will be prepared, and that will be submitted to Parliament for regularizing. So that is how the excesses, whatever they are there, they will be regularized by preparing these appropriation accounts, and after scrutiny by PAC and C&AG, the Ministry of Finance will propose the regularization of the excess expenditure over the sanctioned over the grant sanctioned by President and voted by Parliament. So in any case, if excess is there, that has to be regularized. Under Article 115 also, it says that the excess has to be regularized. So that will be done by preparing the appropriation accounts. So this is the another importance of appropriation accounts. Then, now Now, what are the appropriation accounts? We have to define. So, appropriation accounts are the statements which compares the actual amount of actual expenditure with the grants voted by Parliament and appropriations sanctioned by President. So, here I would like to say that sometimes you may be having a doubt. Sir, is it only for voted part of expenditure? No, the appropriation accounts you have to submit for both voted part and charged part. Both we have to give. So suppose you take one abstract. So charged expenditure you have to give, and similarly voted expenditure of that also you have to give. That comparison of actual expenditure with the grant given, both we have to give, and explanation also we have to give for both. So it is, once again, we should note that appropriation accounts are the statements which compares the actual expenditure during the year, whatever we have spent, and that actual expenditure should tally with our final account current, because this final account current figure also it will be available with the audit. आखिर ये appropriation accounts certify करने का जिम्मेदारी audit का होते हैं, तो इसीलिए we should ensure that actual expenditure, whatever we are giving in these appropriation accounts, it is taken from the final account current. That is one. Secondly, the grants, whatever they were given, it is book of demands or demand for grants through budget order, whatever that is communicated, that will be taken as the grant, original grant. Apart from that, we also sometimes we will be getting supplementary grant. Supplementary grant के बारे में already I explained, but anyhow, what I want to say is that over and above the grant that was voted by Parliament during the year, if any additional amount is required, which cannot be reappropriated, in such cases, the railways will project the additional requirement to Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Finance again in the budget session they will go for supplementary grant. Not revised grant. Revised grant is okay, but revised grant is readjustment. But supplementary grant, additional funds will be sought from Parliament, and that also separately will be communicated, not as RG. RG it will be communicated, but supplementary grant separately in a small booklet, it will be prepared and then sent to the zonal railways. And that supplementary grant also we should take it as if it is voted by Parliament, because it's the vote of Parliament we are taking. So our actual expenditure, we have to compare with the original grant, that is initially book of the budget order, whatever it was given. In addition to that, if additional funds by some railways are asked, when supplementary grant is given, that supplementary grant also it has to be taken, and then for excesses or savings we have to explain. So this is the most important aspect of our appropriation accounts. Next.
Excuse me sir, हिंदी कृपया हिंदी में भी थोड़ा समझाएं सर.
ठीक कभी yeah, now and then.
Okay sir, thank you.
एक बाद में यहाँ पर ये appropriation accounts कब prepare करते हैं? As I already said, at the closure of the financial year. So financial year close होने के बाद हमारा फाइनल अकाउंट करंट हमारे रेलवे बोर्ड को भेजने के बाद ये प्रिपरेशन ऑफ अप्रोप्रिएशन अकाउंट्स का काम शुरू होते हैं. ये कौन सा सेक्शन पे होते हैं? ये बजट सेक्शन पे होते हैं. और देन वन मोर थिंग इज बिफोर क्लोजर ऑफ मार्च अकाउंट्स we'll be getting a letter, detailed program from railway board telling that each of the statement का नाम दे देगा, और ये एडवांस्ड कॉपी ऑडिट को कब देना है, और ऑडिट करके हमारे को कब देना है, दैट इज सर्टिफाइड कॉपी कब देना है, ये पूरे जानकारी एक शेड्यूल के तरफ में एक लिस्ट बना के ये डिटेल्ड प्रोग्राम हमारे को रेलवे बोर्ड से आता है. सो वी हैव टू फॉलो, इवन रेलवे बोर्ड फॉलोज दैट, even zonal railways should follow, even divisions or other units also should follow the same schedule. हमारा एब्स्ट्रैक्ट 3A का हम भेज रहे, सो 3A का रेलवे बोर्ड में भी उसी टाइम पे भेजते ऑडिट को, जोनल रेलवे में भी उसी टाइम को भेजते और डिवीजन में भी उसी टाइम को भेजते। आपको थोड़ा शक होगा कि वो कैसा उन लोग ऑडिट वाले कैसा ये पूरा जानकारी लेके वो सर्टिफाई करेगा। नॉर्मली दे गो डाउन विद द यूनिट सर्टिफाई करने के बाद हेडक्वार्टर सर्टिफाई करते हैं, हेडक्वार्टर सर्टिफाई करने के बाद जो ना रेलवे बोर्ड सर्टिफाई करते हैं, रेलवे बोर्ड का ऑडिट सर्टिफाई करते हैं। वैसा सपोज देयर इज सम प्रॉब्लम विथ आवर सम ऑब्जेक्शन इज देयर, if any objection on any railway, if it is there, then they will not certify. So we have to ensure that timely replies are given by not only timely, even over telephone also. We have to get information, give information to feedback to audit, and then see that objection on appropriation accounts is closed. So this is how we have to prepare ourselves for the appropriation accounts to adhere to the schedule that is given by railway board. और एक इसका विस्तृत ये another important aspect ये है कि this schedule will be issued in consultation with C&AG of railway board, that is ADI, that is Additional Deputy C&AG Railways, who works for and on behalf of C&AG in railway board. So he will, in consultation with him, this schedule will be given, because the audit certification date also it is given. Suppose you and me, if you tell to audit, they will not bother. So that is why in consultation with C&AG, because it has to be completed, that the entire process, it has to be completed. Some 18 months back or 24 months back, it was initiated a budget year, and now we have to close. That closure will be done through appropriation accounts. So अगर excess नहीं है तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. अगर excess है, then it has to be regularized as per Article 115. So therefore, the audit also, they are given timetable. So as per that, within that, they will be certifying them. So we have to be careful, and we have to give any objection on appropriation accounts, immediate reply, 2 days, 1 day, like that time limit will be given. And audit also, they were given time limits to raise objection. So this is how that will be done. आखिर आपको डाउट आएगा, सर ये अप्रोप्रिएशन अकाउंट्स कितने हैं, कितने स्टेटमेंट्स होगा? मैंने बता दिया, ये लिस्ट बना के देते हैं. सो दैट लिस्ट इट विल बी कंप्राइजिंग ऑफ टोटल 44 स्टेटमेंट्स रहता है. ये स्टेटमेंट हमारा एफ&बी के पास और हमारा पीएफए के पास और वो एसएओ बजट और एओ बजट के पास और ये सेक्शन ऑफिस के पास भी रहता, क्योंकि इन लोग पूरे दे आर रेस्पॉन्सिबल टू सेंड दो स्टेटमेंट्स विद इन दैट अनऑडिटेड कॉपी when to be sent, and certified copy when to be sent. We are responsible. So that is why it comprises of 44 statements. ये 44 statements में we can give some bifurcation also. 16 statements are related to grants. 16 statements related to grants. ये 16 statements related to grants कैसा होता है? 14 तो हमारा revenue demands का होते हैं, एक कैपिटल का होते हैं, एक कैपिटल का होते हैं और एक सिविल ग्रांट्स का होते हैं. सो 14 प्लस 1 और 1, सो टोटल 16 स्टेटमेंट्स रिलेटेड टू ग्रांट्स होते हैं. सो दीज आर रिलेटेड टू ग्रांट्स. देन इसके अलावा ये 16 स्टेटमेंट्स ग्रांट्स के रिलेटेड अलावा वी हैव टू प्रिपेयर एनेक्शर्स आल्सो. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो 10 एनेक्शर्स रहता है. ये 10 एनेक्शर्स हमें जो एनेक्शर ये भी हमें पढ़ेंगे. सो 10 एनेक्शर्स रहता है और बाद में 3 स्टेटमेंट्स रहता एक एनेक्शर में. वो एनेक्शर है एनेक्शर जी. सो टोटल अभी कितना हुआ? 16 प्लस 10 26, 26 प्लस 3 29 हुआ. और another 15 there are statements and accounts. Under that caption we will be having 15 statements. So this is how total 44 statements will be there for each and every statement. For each and every statement there will be, when we have to submit to audit for the certification, and for audit when to return duly certified. that statement it will be included. Out of these 44 statements also, one statement has been recently introduced that I will let you know when we go to the annexures. So this is all about 44 statements. And most importantly, these statements will be signed by at the railway board level, CEO and chairman railway board, CEO and CRB, and member finance. These people, CRB will sign at the level of principal secretary to Government of India, ex officio principal secretary to Government of India. So उसकी लेवल पे उन्हें दस्तखत करेगा और मेंबर फाइनेंस उन्हें सेक्रेटरी टू गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया वो स्तर पर मेंबर फाइनेंस दस्तखत करेगा। ये दस्तखत करने के बाद वो DAI को जाएगा, DAI सर्टिफाई करेगा। ये रेलवे बोर्ड लेवल में। अभी जोनल रेलवे में ये स्टेटमेंट्स पूरे 44 स्टेटमेंट्स it has to be signed personally by our PFA, and it should be signed by general manager. And once all statements will be certified by audit people, but one statement will be signed by PDA also, Principal Director or Director General of Audit. He or she will personally sign. It is the statement of balance sheet. That statement of balance sheet will be in Annexure G. Out of 3 statements, one statement is statement of balance sheet, and that will be signed personally by PDA. All other statements will be certified. Okay. Then, how to prepare these appropriation accounts? These appropriation accounts are prepared in form F403. That is, F means finance code पे है और 4 चौथा चैप्टर पे और 3 तीसरा पैराग्राफ में है. So this form, whatever form is there, that form we have to use, and in that form only we have to prepare for each grant and abstract. इसमें ये फॉर्म में पहले चार कॉलम्स होते हैं. वो 4 कॉलम्स में पहले कॉलम में ये है कि पहले कॉलम में ओरिजिनल ग्रांट, हर एक ग्रांट का कैप्शन रहना, और नीचे माइनर हेड वाइज, माइनर हेड माने तो 100, 200, 300 पैसा. सो एब्स्ट्रैक्ट सपोज 3A में 100, 200, 100 जनरल मैनेजमेंट, 200 फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट पैसा. सो 100, 200, 300 ऐसा. सो ओरिजिनल ग्रांट रहना और सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट मैंने बता दी. सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट अगर आपने पूछा और आपको दिया, देन यू हैव टू इंक्लूड सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट पहले कॉलम में भी इंक्लूड करना, और बाद में ये रेसिडुअल ग्रांट के बारे में मैं बताता हूँ. सो सप्लीमेंट ओरिजिनल ग्रांट एंड सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट दे शुड बी देयर इन कॉलम 1. देन कॉलम 2 इज फाइनल ग्रांट. ये दूसरा कॉलम में फाइनल ग्रांट होता है. ये फाइनल ग्रांट में क्या होता है, जो फाइनल ग्रांट हमारे रेलवे बोर्ड मार्च एंडिंग में देते हैं, सो दैट वी कॉल इट एज फाइनल ग्रांट. सो दैट फाइनल ग्रांट और ओरिजिनल ग्रांट और सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट, ओरिजिनल ग्रांट और सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट, ये दोनों का डिफरेंस जो भी होता है, दैट वी विल बी पुटिंग इन द रेसिडुअल ग्रांट. प्लीज लिसन वेरी केयरफुली. ओरिजिनल ग्रांट इज द ग्रांट व्हाट वाज गिवन इन द बुक ऑफ डिमांड एज थ्रू बजट ऑर्डर, बुक ऑफ डिमांड. और सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट और सप्लीमेंट्री आपने मांगे तो आप उन्हें रेलवे बोर्ड दिए तो वो सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट वो भी आप दिखाना है कॉलम 1 में. कॉलम 2 पे फाइनल ग्रांट जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होते हैं मार्च अकाउंट्स में, दैट फाइनल ग्रांट यू हैव टू शो, एंड द डिफरेंस बिटवीन फाइनल ग्रांट, दैट इज फाइनल ग्रांट, एंड द ओरिजिनल ग्रांट एंड सप्लीमेंट्री ग्रांट, इन दोनों का डिफरेंस जो है, that you have to show as residual grant. Then column 3, so column 1 minor head wise वो yes or रहेगा, और column 2 पे final grant रहेगा, और column 3 पे actual expenditure. ये actual expenditure जो final account current से लेना है and same amount we have to show here. अगर वो एक्चुअली कॉपी करने के टाइम में आपने देखा होगा कि अरे ये गलती किया बोल के, but even then you should not alter it because final account current already gone. Suppose it is opened and subsequently you can modify, but if whatever actually there in the final account current, that only where it was booked, that only you have to indicate. So actual expenditure. Yeah, so again you go to our appropriation accounts ka definition. The actual expenditure will be compared with the grant as voted by Parliament and sanctioned by President. So this actual account current, actual expenditure जो column 3 पे आपने बता दी, and final grant जो final grant हमारे को रेलवे बोर्ड दिया है, वो दोनों का डिफरेंस हमें column 4 में डालते हैं excess or savings. Suppose actual expenditure is 100 and the final grant is 90. So 100 minus 90, that is 10 excess. So that excess will be positive. Suppose actual grant is 100. Actual expenditure is 100 and the final grant is 110. So 100 minus 110 minus 10. Minus 10 is saving. So that's how we'll be showing the excess and saving between actual expenditure and final grant. But please listen this carefully. When you give explanation, you have to explain not with reference to the final grant. You have to give explanation for the actual expenditure, difference between actual expenditure and O plus S. Because O is original grant sanctioned by, voted by Parliament, and supplementary grant also voted by Parliament. Agar charge repay hai to, then that also you have to show. So that difference, we have to give explanation as to how we have altered the funds given by Parliament or appropriation sanctioned by President. So the excess and savings only difference between final actual expenditure and final grant, but explanation in the appropriation accounts you have to give separately between actual expenditure and original grant and supplementary grant. इतना आपको जानकारी होने के बाद explanation should be given minor headwise for the variation between actual expenditure and total grant. Total grant माने तो O plus S. This already I explained. Now, this is one of the important aspect. Whether all variations we have to give explanation. Variation माने तो excess भी variation होगा, savings भी variation होगा. So listen this very carefully. So when to give, when not to give. So the relevant letter, it says that all cases of excess or saving, that is variation exceeding 500 lakhs. 500 lakhs के अगर कुछ difference ज़्यादा है, we have to give explanation we have to give. Then where excess or saving exceeds 10% of the provision or 250 lakhs, whichever is higher, that also we have to give explanation. Where excess or saving 10% of the provision or 250 lakhs, whichever is higher, we have to give explanation. Then in case of supplementary grant माने तो yes, supplementary grant में where saving exceeds, that means we are asked more, but agar savings hai, if that saving exceeds 10% of the supplementary grant or 100 lakhs, whichever is higher, we have to explain. Because it is very clear, that means we have asked, but later on we could not use it. Then explanation is required. So that these are the limits with which you have to operate these appropriation accounts while giving the explanations. So all excess or savings exceeding 500 lakhs, we have to give explanation. And where excess or saving exceeding 10% of the provision or 250 lakhs, whichever is higher, we have to explain. And in case of supplementary grant, where saving exceeds 10% or 100 lakhs, whichever is higher, we have to explain. These are the three instances you have to keep it in mind. Then come to the capital nature of expenditure. So when in the capital segment, the the appropriation accounts are compiled in 4 segments, because we knew that revenue sub-major heads, 14 sub-major heads are there. So 14 statements we will prepare for each abstract. But for capital, I already told only one statement we will be submitting. One appropriation account statement we will be submitting. So that one appropriation statement, it will be prepared in 4 segments. 4 segment में हमें prepare करते हैं. वो क्या है? Capital. Those works which are under capital source, that is one segment. Another segment is railway funds. Railway funds का जो segment है, that is railway funds क्या होता है? DRF होते हैं, DF होते हैं, capital fund होते हैं. So उसके बारे में हर एक फंड का और एक सेगमेंट में डालना है दूसरा सेगमेंट. और तीसरा सेगमेंट होते हैं SF, सेफ्टी फंड. सेफ्टी फंड में खाली 2 प्लान हेड्स होते हैं. दो प्लान हेड्स का वर्क्स हमें यहाँ पर दिखाना है. और चौथा सेगमेंट, 4th सेगमेंट है RRS के, रेलवे नेशनल रेलवे संरक्षण कोष. सो RRS के बारे में जो भी वर्क्स हमें एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे क्लोज होने के बाद ये 4th चौथा सेगमेंट में हमें दिखाना है. सो एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑलवेज, बिकॉज यहाँ तो कैसा हमें एक्चुअल एक्सपेंडिचर और फाइनल ग्रांट ये रेवेन्यू में हमें दिखा रहा है, यहाँ पर भी एक्सप्लेनेशन शैल बी वर्क वाइज. यहाँ पर तो वहां पर माइनर हेड ऐसा होते हैं. यहाँ पर माइनर हेड माने तो प्लान हेड के अंदर वर्क्स होते हैं. सो सोर्स वाइज होते हैं. वो सोर्सेस एक कैपिटल, रेलवे फंड्स, SF, RRS के 4 सेगमेंट्स में. सो वर्क वाइज हमें देना है ओनली फॉर दोज वर्क्स फॉलिंग अंडर क्राइटेरिया for charged and voted. So always you remember, for voted and charged, we have to keep everything in mind. But only thing is, for those works falling under criteria, this you keep it in mind. वो criteria पे है, only that work only the executive has to pick up, and then for that explanation he has to give. Not for all works, because you knew in the pink book कितना देर सारे thousands of works will be there. It is not necessary, and it will not yield any result also if we go on explaining for each individual work. So Public Accounts Committee, therefore it has recommended certain criteria. So वो criteria पे जो works आता है, वो works के बारे में explanation, grant कितना है, actual expenditure जितना है. Why that variation? Suppose saving is there, so estimate not sanctioned, or drawings not prepared. Like that we can do. Suppose excess expenditure is there, why it could not be postponed? वो criteria पे most important point is criteria. So वो criteria क्या है देखेंगे. This is about capital segment. So the reason for the variations will be explained with reference to O plus S, work-wise, for all works. मैंने बता दी criteria, all works under plan head, 4 plan head दिया है. ये 4 plan head में पिंक बुक में जो works है, ये पूरे के पूरे works को explanation देना है. O plus S और actual expenditure minus O plus S. Excess है या saving है. क्यों excess, क्यों saving? Physically they have to see and then send it. So that what are the plan heads? The plan heads are new lines, gauge conversion, doubling, railway electrification. इसके बारे में no work can be omitted. For all works they have to do. Then one more criteria. For works costing more than 20 crore, for works costing more than 20 crore under plan head, track renewal 3100, 3200 bridge works, and 3300 SNT works. For them only, that means only those works which are costing more than 20 crore. Okay. Now next, the reason for variations for the works falling under the criteria only, as I said, criteria only we have to explain. Now what are the criteria? Please listen this carefully. Number 1, entire supplementary grant remains unutilized. entire supplementary grant remains unutilized. So supplementary grant हमें मांगा, ये पूरा इस्तेमाल भी नहीं किया. Suppose 10 crores you asked, 10 crores it was given, and 10 crores saving is there. Then you have to explain. Because specifically the board has approached the finance ministry, and from finance ministry we have and finance ministry has prepared supplementary grant, took the approval of parliament or took the sanction from president, then communicated. Then after the entire episode, you are not utilizing, you are not utilized. You need to explain. Then entire O plus S remains unutilized. Original grant भी use नहीं किया, बाद में supplementary grant मांगा, वो भी use नहीं किया. Then you need to explain. Then 10%, more than 10% of the supplementary grant or 100 lakhs. Already this I explained. Remain unutilized, you need to explain. Where the variation or excess exceeds 500 lakhs over O plus S. O plus S or our expenditure that is more than 500 lakhs, then you need to explain. Both are up. And savings or excess exceeding 250 lakhs or 10% of the O plus S grant, but did not exceed 500 lakhs, you need to explain. So these are the criteria. In this criteria, even 2 or 3 items you have to remember and then tell. So they are for those works which are falling under this criteria, we need to explain. So now appropriation accounts form. I already told that previously we used to have both there are 16 demands for grants used to be there, but now there is only one grant. So that for that one grant, we have to compile appropriation accounts only for one grant only. That means under grant, what are the things you will be having? After grant, you will be having major heads. Then under that major head, you will be having sub-major head. Sub-major head is nothing but your abstracts. That is how it will be. Similarly, if you come to capital segment, major head, बाद में minor head माने plan head. Plan head में वो चौथा segment, 4 segments है ना, capital, railway funds, safety fund और RRS के. वैसा ही वो criteria मन में रख के explanation देना पड़ता है. Otherwise, they need not give. We can leave that. So this is one. Then this is revenue. Capital section further divided into 4 segments. So that already I told. Then always grant and expenditure should be gross. Why grant and expenditure should be gross? Because the budget we will be seeking under gross segment, gross only. Parliament will give only for gross. But please listen this carefully. Credits or recoveries, we will be showing them in our demands for grants. So, but this will not be put up for voting of Parliament. Therefore, whether credits or recoveries, whatever we presumed that it will be recovered or that the credit will be coming, whether we have realized or not, that you have to show how much you have realized, and then the explanation you need not give. Only thing is you have to show how much you have asked, how much credit you have anticipated, and how much you got. That only you have to have in your mind. So no need of explanation for the credits or recoveries. And one more thing is correction slip. Sometimes it so happens that after submission of these statements signed by PFA and general manager, sometimes railway board will ask us to reopen our accounts. At that point of time, if already items were submitted, statements were submitted and certified by audit also, then in that case, we need to give correction slip. These correction slips always you should be given at JHG level, and all these correction slips should be serially numbered and should be shown. That we have to show, and then these correction slips at the end of the appropriation accounts stage, we have to prepare a small note and then take we should bring these correction slips to the notice of the main signatories. Who are the main signatories? PFA and general manager. So to PFA and general manager for information only. No approval is required. For information only, we have to take PFA signature as well as GM signature, and then having taken that, we should apprise that note to audit. So this is how the correction slips have to be forwarded. So this revenue segment form, as I said, say grant number, and then major head, then minor head wise, then total grant. Here minor head O plus S, original supplementary, or residual hai to residual, then total grant, then actual expenditure, then variation. And this variation we will just indicate, but actual expenditure minus O plus S, that need to be explained. So here you can see 3002 major head, 3003, this is strategic lines. So 3002 OSR. Then how much is the variation? So that variation because of 100 general superintendents, then reasons will give. Then that 100 will be showing excess or saving only, but why that excess, that actual expenditure in variation to O plus S, that will be subhead wise will be showing. Subhead wise will be showing, and that explanation will be giving with reference to the primary unit wise statements. So this is one revenue segment. Similarly, capital segment में grant number, major head 5002, then minor head माने तो plan head, total grant, actual expenditure, likewise it will be. Then under capital, I said 4 segments. So part 1 is capital. Then capital में charge बाद में voted. So again, minor head wise, minor head माने तो new lines, say plan head, new lines. New lines original grant कितना है, supplementary grant कितना है, total grant कितना है, actual expenditure कितना है, excess or saving कितना है. And that will be pink book item number, name of the work, original grant, supplementary grant, actual expenditure, net variation, reason. So that's how every plan head we have to, that is minor head wise, we have to give explanation. Then reason we have to, then gauge conversion, then traffic facility, like that we have to give. Then always the figures of the appropriation accounts will be in thousands of rupees. Then the actual expenditure shown in the appropriation account should agree with the annual accounts, final account current of the railway. Then capital segment, cross actual expenditure should tally with the annexure A of the final account current, because there the details will be there. Then expenditure as actually recorded will be executed, irrespective of the grant under which provision exists. Sometimes there is a grant and here excess is there, let me change it. No, that should not happen. Then please listen this carefully. Normally, Railway Board sometimes in our examination, they will ask how the variations will be explained. This will be many a time it will be asked. So few items you remember and then write in your examination how variations will be explained. How prepared, that we have explained so far, and how variations to be explained. The amounts relating to the several causes mentioned separately. Other 2-3 reasons are there. So for 2-3 reasons, separate amounts you have to show, 110, 120, 130. Those amounts you have to show separately, and then reasons have to be mentioned. Suppose one reason only is there, then that need to be repeated. In such case, you need not repeat. At one place, you give full reason. The excess is due to implementation of pay commission. Suppose that is there. Then you have to tell many times in the same grant. Then you did not repeat. Then as explained at subhead so and so or minor head so and so. If you give that reference, that is okay. Then wherever excess or savings are given, we have to bring out why that particular excess has happened. Saving will leave it. Excess, why that has happened and why it could not be foreseen at the time of budgeting, and why that expenditure was all of a sudden it has come, we need to explain. Similarly, why it could not be postponed, that also we have to tell. Suppose you have provided in the estimate in the budget, but the debit has not been received. If you give that debit has not been received, then you have to give why, from which officer, from which accounting unit that has to come, that also you have to indicate. Similarly,
एक बार और समझाइएगा सर प्लीज, ये एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ एडिशन प्लीज.
okay.
एक बार और समझाइएगा सर प्लीज.
Yeah. So then one more point is that explanation we have to give where reappropriation is permitted. Suppose between 28, 32 reappropriation is permitted. 28 may actual expenditure is very less. 32 may actual expenditure is more. So why reappropriation we could not do at the zonal level or unit level? That we need to explain. So that means wherever reappropriation possibility is there, so that possibility we have to exhaust. We should not leave it. So in that scenario, our accounts officers, we have to explain to the executive that please propose the reappropriation so that we will give concurrence. So this is how it should be done. So these are, I summed up from our finance code. So if you write how variations are to be explained, this is enough for examination point of view. Number one, amounts relating to several causes mentioned separately. एक तो स्टाफ पेमेंट्स के एक्सेस है और कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पेमेंट्स में एक्सेस है और डेबिट्स एंड क्रेडिट्स में लेस है, वैसा है तो separately we have to make a mention for the amounts where several causes are there. Separately we have to give. अगर एक ही रीजन है, different places you have to give, then एक जगह पे क्लियर इंडिकेशन देना है, क्लियर एक्सप्लेनेशन देना है, एंड दूसरे जगह पे खाली उसका रेफरेंस दिए तो बस है. Then in all cases where excess or saving are there, we have to bring out why that excess or saving has happened, why that expenditure is not foreseen at the time of preparing the budgets or revised estimates, or why that expenditure excess is there, why that expenditure could not be postponed to the next year, or where reappropriations are permitted, those reappropriation हमें नहीं करे तो then why that was not done, where possibility is there but we are not done. So that for that inaction also we have to explain. Similarly, whenever any debit, anticipated debit is there and not fructified, वो debit नहीं आया तो किस accounting unit से नहीं आया, that accounts officer name and that is accounting unit name we have to mention in the variations. So इतना आप लिखे तो that is introduction के बारे में इतना काफी है. That is now so far what we have answered. What are appropriation accounts? What is its importance? How it is prepared and how variations are explained. So this is all with reference to grants we have done. Now that means 16 statements are over, including capital segment, civil grants and our revenue grants. Fine. Now there are, I said 10 annexures are there. So that annexures should be accompanied with the appropriation accounts. वो annexures क्या है? First, annexure A, expenditure held under objection. Annexure B, पहले A list दे दीजिएगा. बाद में suppose they ask you to explain any two, then further explanation you can give. So पहले तो ये जानकारी आपको होना चाहिए कि annexure A में क्या होते हैं. Expenditure held under objection, that means unsanctioned expenditure. Annexure B के बारे में under charges detected. Under charges detected normally it will be either from accounts or audit, from traffic accounts that will come. Then annexure C, remission or abandonment of clients. This also will come from traffic accounts. Remission or abandonment कहाँ पर आते हैं? Remission, workfare, demurrage charges हमें remissions देते हैं हमारे executive officers. So जितना दिए, so that those details we have to get a statement from traffic accounts. That is annexure C. Annexure D, expenditure on open land works and new constructions. This is very difficult statement, and number of items also will be more. I will explain. This is Annexure D, expenditure on open line works and new constructions. Then Annexure E, revenue and capital expenditure of strategic lines. जो strategic lines जो चार जोनल रेलवे पे है, उन लोगों ने ये स्टेटमेंट बनाना है, और बाकी का जोनल रेलवेज they will give nil statement, because those other railways they will be having only commercial lines. Then Annexure F, estimated and actual credit bar recoveries. मैंने बता दिया आपको क्रेडिट्स और रिकवरीज खाली जितना आपने बजट के टाइम पे आपने कितना एस्टिमेट किया, कितना एक्चुअल पाया, and as excess or saving, that only we have to give. No explanation need be given. So that statement in the abstract wise you have to give, that is revenue and capital estimated credit or recovery and the actual credit or recovery, abstract wise or minor head wise you have to give. Then Annexure H, statement of losses. जो भी losses होते हैं हमारे रेवेन्यू में, लॉसेस बुक करने के वास्ते एक माइनर हेड रहता है 900 बोल के. सो जो बुक हो चुके हैं, those details you have to get, and then for why that has happened. Is it due to natural calamity, or is it due to fire, or is it due to is that loss due to theft? So such reasons you have to get from executive, and then those are which are adjusted in the books. Those losses you have to explain in Annexure H. Then Annexure I, irregular reappropriation. I said somewhere reappropriation agar permitted hai, we have to give that reappropriation. If you are not doing reappropriation, then it is incorrect. Now what we have to see is that correct reappropriation hoga. Incorrect irregular reappropriation माने तो एक वर्क से दूसरे वर्क को आप दिया, जो दूसरे वर्क को हमें रीअप्रोप्रिएट किया वहां इस्तेमाल नहीं किया, then audit will watch. That means you have done reappropriation but it was not utilized. One more point, ये थोड़ा मन में आप रखे तो एग्जामिनेशन पे एक दो एनेक्सेस के बारे में लिखो बोले तो लिख सकते. और दूसरा यह है कि एक वर्क से दूसरा वर्क को दिया है, मगर जो वर्क से आपने पैसे लिए हैं वहां पर और दूसरा बजट रिव्यूज में आपने मांगा, and you allowed that asking also, and they got funds, then that also irregular reappropriation. Because why that will become irregular? When it is certified by executive that money is not required, then only you have allowed a reappropriation. But बाद में again during the budget reviews, suppose they ask more, then if you allow, then it is irregular reappropriation. So Annexure I. Annexure J. Annexure J is misclassification and mistakes detected. So misclassification mistake, it is very, very important statement for us. We all, because every expenditure, it is pre-checked by us. Every proposal is pre-checked by us. If some mistake is there in the allocation or in the internal check, then it is a shame on the part of our accounts department. So normally we will be very, very cautious to see that Annexure J items are nil. But thanks to our merger of railway budget with general budget, the misclassification or mistakes have come down. Because previously we used to have 16 grants. So कहीं एक 7 को जाना वो 4 को जाता है, 4 को जाना वो 3A को जाता है. So that problem used to be there, but now it is only one grant. So one grant now, what is there in the misclassification? Only 1 or 2 cases. Please listen this carefully. Abhi after merger of railway budget with general budget, only misclassification is that revenue segment versus capital segment. We should be very careful. Dusra, voted expenditure versus charged expenditure. Bas. And miscellaneous expenditure, miscellaneous earning. तीसरा, ये तीनों हमें देखे तो if you are careful about these three, then the misclassification will be nil. Then another one is Annexure B Part 1 review, otherwise popularly known as Annexure K. Annexure K बोलते हमारा appropriation accounts में कहीं भी नहीं रहता, मगर it is even in examinations also sometimes it is asked Annexure K, difference between distinguish between Annexure J and Annexure K. Don't worry, but that Annexure K is officially known as Annexure B Part 1 review. क्योंकि हमारा ये appropriation accounts दो पार्ट में बनाता है. ये कंसोलिडेटेड पार्ट 1 में रहता है, दूसरा जोनल रेलवे वाइज दूसरा पार्ट में रहता है. जो ऑल दीज एनेक्शर्स दे आर इन पार्ट 2, बट पार्ट 1 में भी एनेक्शर्स है. सो एक एनेक्शर पार्ट 1 में रहता है, वो एनेक्शर बी डिफेक्ट्स इन बजटिंग एंड कंट्रोल ओवर एक्सपेंडिचर. You don't mistake. Here annexure B is there. This is in part 2, that is under charges deducted. But the annexure B in part 1 review, it is defects in budgeting and COE. Defects in budgeting माने तो budget हमें मांगा, इस्तेमाल नहीं किया. We are not used. We are not asked, but we have incurred the expenditure. Then that is also incorrect. So we should be very, very careful about that. Then annexure G. Now you can see these are the 10 statements. Annexure A to annexure B, part 1 review. That is say annexure K. Except annexure G, these are 10 statements. And I also told annexure G 3 statements. So that annexure G is nothing but there are 3 statements I told. One is block account. ये block account दो part में रहता है. Part 1, part 2 capital statements के रहते हैं. That is ये खाली एक statement में capital का रहता है. दूसरा block account part 2 में क्या रहता है? Capital और दूसरा sources. जो भी expenditure होगा वो उनका expenditure का details ये block account में होता है. That is one statement. दूसरा statement I said the PDA also will or Director General of Audit will sign on the Zonal Railway personally. That is balance sheet of the Zonal Railway. और तीन statements में तीसरा statement है P&L account of the Zonal Railway. P&L account, profit and loss account of the Zonal Railway. ये 3 statements annexure G में रहता है. So now with this almost except the 15 statements, all other we have covered. Okay, so this you have to be very, you have to be thorough with at least 3 or 4 statements. And now come to the last stage, that is 15 statements. Now what are they? Now let us see one by one. Statement showing the distributable expenditure and receipts. ये distributable expenditure and receipts ये क्या होते हैं? एक statement हमारा हमें बनाना है. Normally this distributable statement of expenditure and receipts actually railway board will give us. They will take certain information of expenditure and receipts from zonal railway and they will consolidate and then they will send the details. Now, what are the details that will be available under distributable expenditure and receipts? Expenditure पहले expenditure के बारे में देखेंगे. Expenditure के बारे में distributable expenditure में expenditure relating to railway board, that is distributable to all zonal railway. Please listen this carefully. कहीं भी नहीं मिलेगा. ये railway board का expenditure, it is distributable to all zonal railway. So that expenditure it will be consolidated by railway board and then given to us. Given to zonal railway. They distribute and then this much you have to show. So where to show, I will tell you. Okay. Then one more thing is all centralized training institutes expenditure. That is also distributable to all zonal railway. Then all expenditure of RDSO, it is also distributable expenditure. Then expenditure of RRBs, it is also distributable expenditure. Then other miscellaneous establishments like Railway Rates Tribunal and other railway offices in foreign countries, that is Berlin, Paris, C&AG office expenditure, all these are distributable expenditure on all 17 zonal railways. So railway board will communicate to us. So whatever portion that is given to that particular our railway, we have to take them and we have to show this is the distributable expenditure. One statement, first page. Similarly, receipts. Receipts के बारे में खाली एक ही रिसीट है. वो रिसीट क्या होता है? That is receipt from RRBs. जो भी आते हैं, that we have to show, and that is also distributable receipt. So this statement we have to prepare based on the statement given by railway board. So that statement we will be using them on pro forma basis in our P&L account and other statements wherever we have to take distributable expenditure and distributable receipts. There we will be utilizing this particular information. This is one. Then similarly, second one is changes in forms and classification. Please listen this carefully. Changes in forms and classification. Normally, any change and in form or classification, it is subject to the concurrence or in consultation with C&AG only we have to do. So whether we have done that or not, so they will be knowing any changes if we have taken up during the year of the appropriation accounts, we have to show that. Once you show that correction slip or whatever railway board issued letter, then issued in consultation with the C&AG or not. Only for that purpose. Then another one is percentage, another statement, percentage of working expenses to earnings. So needless to say that it is nothing but operating ratio. So this operating ratio will be comparing with each of the journal with the previous year. That journal will compare the operating ratio of the appropriation accounts with the previous years, how it is faring well or not. So that explanation will be given. Suppose there is a deterioration, that also will give. Okay, so this is with regard to operating ratio. Then statement of credit to capital for retired assets. You may have heard some people who work in finance expenditure, they'll be knowing. So wherever capital works are abandoned, a building, say quarters were constructed, but they were abandoned. Sometimes because of non-occupancy, they'll be abandoned. Doors and windows they will be taken off, and then only walls will be there. But where from we constructed this? At the capital. So when capital is there, then we have to write off that capital. So that writing of capital, it will be done by preparing an estimate. So that writing of capital, it is credit to capital for retired assets. Retired assets mane to those were abandoned. That means that will not be used further. So in such cases, this credit to capital of the retired assets, you have to take them. I will tell you in one word. You may have heard about write back adjustments. That write back adjustment is nothing but the credit to capital to this retired assets. Then statement of annual voted and charged expenditure. Khali हमारा final account current का voted expenditure and charged expenditure minor head wise we have to give a statement. Then हर एक अकाउंट का एक अकाउंट बना के देना है. DRF अकाउंट, पेंशन फंड अकाउंट, DF अकाउंट, कैपिटल फंड अकाउंट, सेफ्टी फंड अकाउंट, डेट सर्विसिंग फंड अकाउंट, because all these accounts they'll be having opening balance, and जो भी credits है credits और interest government देते हैं that interest that will be credit. And हमें जितना अमाउंट हमें यूज किया है that will be debit, and जितना बाकी बैलेंस है वो फंड में. That for each of these you have to prepare and then send it to audit for certification. Then statement of suspense balances. हमारा डिमांड्स पेएबल का, MER का, परचेज का, ये पूरे सस्पेंस बैलेंसेस का स्टेटमेंट एक बना के ऑडिट का सर्टिफिकेशन के वास्ते भेजना है. Then with regard to stores statement, there are few statements: annual statement of stores transactions, S3001, or results of stock verification and revaluation of the stock. This is as per S210, stores codes 210. Whatever we have stock and stock adjustment account, all these details we have to give under stores account. Then one more statement we have to prepare: P&L account of the railway catering units. Railway catering units का statement. एक हमारा डिपार्टमेंटल कैटरिंग यूनिट्स का प्रॉफिट्स है या लॉसेस है. So that we have to show these P&L account of the railway catering units. उसमें कैटरिंग यूनिट्स में जो परचेजेस किया है, वो ओपनिंग बैलेंस परचेजेस किया है, एक्सपेंडिचर किया है, वो पूरा P&L अकाउंट डेबिट साइड आता है. एंड जो भी सेल किया है, दैट सेल विल कम अंडर रेलवे कैटरिंग यूनिट्स का क्रेडिट साइड आता है. सो क्लोजिंग बैलेंस जो भी है, दैट इज मटेरियल, रॉ मटेरियल और कैश ऑन हैंड, इट विल बी शोन. सो दिस इज हाउ इट विल बी shown under the P&L account of the railway catering units. बाद में, this is new statement that is included in the subsidiary statements and accounts. So sometimes they may ask subsidiary statements and accounts क्या है. Then in that case you can write recently this statement, last statement, it was added. The statement of plan head wise, including suspense heads, source wise, voted and charged, gross credit net, and the units of rupees में देना है. That means this is purely related to our capital account. So these are the statements which we have to prepare. So now by this you will be understanding now what are the annexures. I'll tell in detail about the annexures also, and what are the subsidiary statements and accounts. This each and every item I have explained. Now let us see the annexures in detail. Suppose they may ask in the question, they may ask, write short notes about 4 annexures, or distinguish between annexure A and annexure J, or annexure J and annexure K. Sometimes they will ask. So it will be useful for you. So annexure A, what is this annexure A? Annexure A, already I told, it is statement of unsanctioned expenditure. Why this statement of unsanctioned expenditure is required is a certificate has to be furnished by our CRB and member finance, and at the Zonal Railway, our PFA and GM in the appropriation accounts, to the effect that all expenditure included as actual expenditure is sanctioned by competent authority except a list. So that list is nothing but annexure A. So that means all actual expenditure, whatever we are showing in through our final account current, that is all sanctioned. But there are certain expenditure which is not sanctioned. That unsanctioned expenditure is listed at so and so. So that list we have to give under annexure A. So that is the importance of annexure A. And an item of expenditure should be classified as unsanctioned, amounting to 1 lakh or more, and 1 lakh less than 1 lakh. So 1 lakh or more, one category, less than 1 lakh, one category. So that we have to show under this annexure A. So 2 categories, 1 lakh and above, one statement, 1 lakh and less, unsanctioned expenditure, another statement we have to prepare. The amount should be classified into 3 categories. So 1 lakh and above or 1 lakh and less, 2 categories. हर एक कैटेगरी में तीन कैटेगरीज हमें दिखाना है सेपरेटली. व्हाट आर दे? वांट ऑफ एस्टिमेट, एस्टिमेट के बिना एक्सपेंडिचर किया है, नॉर्मली इट विल बी नील. एक्सेस ओवर एस्टिमेट, एस्टिमेट है इसके ऊपर हमें खर्च किया है, दैट विल बी देयर. देन मिसलेनियस इरेगुलर, जो भी ऑडिट ऑब्जेक्शंस है, हमारा अकाउंट्स का ऑब्जेक्शंस है, all those amounts we have to show under this. So 3 categories only we have to show: want of estimate, excess over estimate, miscellaneous estimate. 3 categories. दो स्टेटमेंट में देना है। दो स्टेटमेंट, एक स्टेटमेंट में 1 लाख और ऊपर, 1 लाख के अंदर, वैसा। Then the amount exhibited under 3 divisions, that is relating to the earlier than previous year, ये साल के earlier than previous year, पिछले साल से पिछले साल, और relating to the previous year, पिछले साल, और relating to the current year, वैसा 3 स्टेटमेंट, 3 डिविजन्स में देना है। So this you have to be carefully remember and then write when you write about annexure A. Then annexure B, statement of undercharges. Undercharges which are beyond, जो undercharges 5 रुपए 10 रुपए है, there is no problem, but these limits are given in our accounts code. इसके अलावा ज्यादा है, coaching and goods detected by accounts and audit, it will be shown in the annexure. The percentage of the undercharges detected by accounts and audit will be worked out to the total earnings audited, and it will be exhibited. Say 1% or 0.14%, like that it will be indicated. Annexure C, remission and remission of claims, abandonment or remission of claims. I said already, warfare and damage and other claims, अगर हमें foregone किया, तो then we have to indicate. So again, here also 2 statements we have to prepare, amounting to less than 25,000 or more and less than 25,000. So separately we have to prepare and then audit. This is annexure C. Then separate statement of claims abandoned to revenue above 1 lakh also will be executed separately. Very important. So 25,000 and more it will be indicated, but agar 1 lakh and above, that means important item. So separate statement we have to include. Then annexure D. I said this is very, very important, not tedious. Why tedious? I will tell you. Construction of new constructions and important open land works. So this annexure covers the review of open land works, new constructions, detailing the important works which are taken up during the year. Please listen to this carefully. These are taken up during the year without budget closure. Yes, sometimes it happens. Budget nahi hai. These works which were not undertaken, though funds have been provided. Funds high, expenditure nahi hai. So we have to single out them, and then executive has to furnish these details. But this will be in 3 statements. Separately we have to prepare. Now what are they? The review compares the actual expenditure with the estimated cost for the works physically completed during the financial year. ये appropriation accounts कौन सा financial year कर रहे हैं? वो financial में जो complete हुआ है, that only we have to show. Only completed works, but they will be compiled in 3 parts. Now what are they? Part 1, works costing 2.5 crores and over. 2.5 crores के ऊपर costing high, cost high, though they were undertaken during the year without budget provision. ये part 1 ये में दिखाना पड़ता है. 2.5 crores and over undertaken during the year without budget provision. और part 1B में works costing 2.5 crores and over of previous years on which expenditure was booked during the year without budget provision. ये तो पिछले साल में सैंक्शन हुआ है, मगर ये साल में बजट नहीं है, फिर भी बुक किया है. That is the difference between part 1A and part 1B. Part 1B ये current year का है, part 1A current year का है. Without budget provision we have undertaken. Then part 1B पिछले सालों में सैंक्शन हुआ है, मगर ये साल में बिना बजट प्रोविजन we have booked certain expenditure. This is part 1A, part 1B relating to more than 2.5 crores. Now, part 2 में works costing 2.5 crores and over for which budget provision existed but not utilized. Not spent single pie. So this is second statement. पहले without budget provision current साल का पिछले सालों का. पार्ट 2 में बजट प्रोविजन है, एक्सपेंडिचर नहीं है. और तीसरा, वेरिएशन बिटवीन ओरिजिनल एस्टिमेट एंड एक्सपेंडिचर इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ वर्क्स व्हिच आर कंप्लीटेड ड्यूरिंग द ईयर कॉस्टिंग मोर देन 2.5 crores. ये पार्ट 3, ये तीनों पार्ट में ये एनेक्सर डी बनाना है। ये बहुत मुश्किल का काम है। ये तो normally, in my experience, normally this statement will be given in the end. Then Annexure E. Annexure E shows the working expenses and other revenue charges related to the strategic lines. So strategic lines: Northern Railway, North Central Railway, Northwestern Railway, Western Railway. Under each major head and sub-head wise, sub-major head wise, this expenditure will be given relating to the strategic lines. It will show the expenditure on works relating to the strategic lines met from capital, DF, DRF, that is railway funds, RRSK, and capital fund. This is one. Then Annexure F, this will show the estimated and actual credits or recoveries, major headwise, sub-major headwise, revenue as well as works. Okay, Annexure E, Annexure F, over. Annexure G, already I told you that they are related to three statements. One is block account, only capital, loan capital. दूसरा statement, block account, all inclusive at one place. Capital plus other sources, block account, balance sheet, and you will be having P&L account of the journal entry. So with this Annexure G also over. Now Annexure H. Annexure H, items of all losses excepting those related to stores accounts, because stores losses, they will be dealt in stock adjustment account. So book to revenue as losses and write-off of overpayments which are treated as losses should be exhibited in the annexure. And here also again two statements here. These things you have to remember. So items costing more than 50,000 and more, one list, and then costing below 50,000, loss of below 50,000, one list. It all lump sum diye to bas hai. Then a brief explanation of circumstances why that loss has happened. It is loss due to natural calamity, fire, earthquake, cyclone, etc. Loss due to theft, loss due to accident. Likewise, you have to show. And if the write-off or loss could not be taken during the current year, then why that was delayed, we need to explain. Then a separate statement of expenditure payment made under submeasure head 10 will be also exhibited under annexure H. So expenditure payments जो भी हमें passengers को देते हैं, हमारा railway staff को देते हैं, so that we have to show a separate statement. And annexure I already I said irregular reappropriation. आपने हमें concurrence किया है मगर वो इस्तेमाल नहीं किया है. हमें कंकरेंस दिया है मगर जो वक्त से हमें ले चुके हैं बाकी का again they asked, so those items will be listed as irregular reappropriations, indicating major headwise, sub-major headwise. Generally it will be a nil statement. Annexure J, now after, as I said, Annexure J and Annexure K, they have become very minimal after merger of our value budget. So any excess expenditure is there, it will be regularized as per the Article 115 of the Constitution to be exhibited in the consolidated appropriation accounts fall under these categories. Number one, already I told you, revenue and works, voted and charged, miscellaneous receipt and miscellaneous expenditure. And all other mistakes will be at journal level only. They will not be finding place in the appropriation accounts of the railway board. Action taken to rectify the mistakes and submission of action taken note, that is most important. Annexure J. Annexure J, already I told, three statements. So with this, all our appropriation accounts, they are complete, and at the railway board level, these appropriation accounts will become consolidated, and consolidated appropriation accounts, they will be submitted. Okay. So with this, I conclude, and now I am ready to take. Yeah. Any doubts if you are having, or any clarification you require? Dear participants, I hope I have given you in detail about these appropriation accounts. कोने में आपको question दिए तो भी short notes और distinguish between ऐसा दिए तो भी आप you can use my presentation.
Sir, namaskar.
नमस्कार.
Sir,
कौन बोल रहे हैं?
Sir, Biresh from Bilaspur SSCR.
हाँ, Biresh. Yeah.
Sir, PHOD, CHOD has power to reappropriation?
Yes. No, only revenue CHOD is having powers, but in their department only they can do. And DRM, the budget given to the division, he can reappropriate with the concurrence, finance concurrence. Any reappropriation, it should be with finance concurrence. And coming to the capital segment, what I told is it is about revenue segment, but about capital segment, all finance proposals, they should be scrutinized by our accounts. It should be sanctioned by general manager. Yeah.
Okay, sir, one more question.
Yes,
sir,
please.
misclassification and misappropriation are same or not?
No. Actually, misclassification माने तो एक अकाउंट को हेड ऑफ अकाउंट को जाना है, मगर गलती से दूसरा हेड ऑफ अकाउंट को हमें बुक किया, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड मिसक्लासिफिकेशन. ये तो हमें, एज आई सेड, हमारे अकाउंट डिपार्टमेंट को बहुत शर्मिंदा की बात होते हैं, क्योंकि हमारा इंटरनल चेक हमें करते हैं हर एक पेमेंट का, और हम हर एक प्रपोजल हमारा फाइनेंस सेक्शन डील करते हैं. तो मिसक्लासिफिकेशन नॉर्मली इट विल बी व्यूड एज एन इंसल्ट टू आवर अकाउंट्स डिपार्टमेंट. दैट इज ओके. नाउ मिसअप्रोप्रिएशन माने तो स्वैलोइंग ऑफ फंड्स, स्वैलोइंग ऑफ मनी. हमारा रेलवे सपोज कैशियर के पास से 5 लाख का कैश है, उन्हें बोलता है कि थेफ्ट हो गया बोल के, then it is a misappropriation. Similarly, suppose some wrong certification से payment हो जाता है, then that is misappropriation. The parties they will swallow the money. So those misappropriation cases, normally if it is only one department, normally our business department will take up, and if outsider also involved, then railway CBI we will hand over the cases to CBI. So these are misappropriation cases. हमारे frauds, embezzlements, misappropriations हमें कैसा डील करना है, ये पूरे जानकारी हमारा फाइनेंस कोड पे है. But misclassification, it is only mistake in account. One head of account को जाना है, दूसरा head of account को गया है, वो तो incorrect है. तो हमें appropriation accounts में छपने के बाद this appropriation accounts it will be tabled before Parliament, and then Public Accounts Committee also scrutinizes, and then the members of Parliament will see, and then we need to rectify them. वो जो गलत हेड हमें बुक किया है, so correct head कौन सा है, वो appropriation account में छपा रहता है. So we have to book to the correct head of account in the next financial year, when on hand accounts में we have to book. But at the same time, please remember this very carefully, we need to seek funds. Without funds आपने rectification नहीं कर पाते. Rectification करने के बाद हमें action take a note देना है. Yes,
सर, एक चीज और बताइए सर. सर, ये GM और रेलवे बोर्ड किस में भी reappropriation कर सकते हैं? उनका example.
That will be there will be a big list is there. Very recently a redistribution or reappropriation के बारे में एक चिट्ठी रेलवे बोर्ड में भिजाया है. You kindly go through that, or we will have separate session on those redistribution or reappropriation. But
okay, sir.
Broadly, I can say that from one source to another source, it is not there within the purview of zonal railway. From one plan head to another plan head within the same source, it can be done by the zonal railway. There are certain restrictions are there, so that separately we will deal.
Okay, sir.
Right. Next, Ajay Singh.
सर नमस्ते.
नमस्कार अजय जी.
सर आपने बोला कि एप्रोप्रिएशन अकाउंट में ग्रांट एंड एक्सपेंडिचर को ग्रॉस में ही डिनोट करते हैं, शो करते हैं, ऐसा क्यों है सर? इसका कुछ एग्जांपल देके समझाएं सर।
या क्योंकि हमारा डिमांड्स फॉर ग्रांट्स हमें बजट मांगने के टाइम पे ग्रॉस एक्सपेंडिचर के बारे में हमें 100, 200, 300 सब हेडवाइज वी विल बी सीकिंग फंड्स, बट ये क्रेडिट्स एंड रिकवरीज उसके बाद में हमें इंक्लूड करके हमें हर एक ग्रांट को हमें फंड्स मांगते हैं। सपोज अंडर एब्स्ट्रैक्ट 3A, suppose 100 crores is there and credits are 10 rupees, 100 say 10 crores you can say. So total grant gross 100 होता, credit 10 crores होता है, net कितना होता है 90 crores. But while putting up to parliament in the finance ministry, they will seek vote of parliament not for 90 rupees. They will ask or they seek vote of parliament or sanction from president for 100 rupees for the gross amount only. That means how much gross we have asked, how much voted by parliament, how much sanctioned by president, say 100 crores. For that only we need to explain, not net. कहीं कहीं ऐसा होता है कि कहीं कहीं ये होता है कि क्रेडिट्स हमारा एग्जीक्यूटिव डिपार्टमेंट से ये बोलता है कि सर मैंने नॉट 10 crores, आई विल गेट 20 crores, नहीं 20 crores आप भर के दे दीजिए, but you give me more, you allow me to book more expenditure. That cannot happen. That is why always we insist that the gross expenditure, because gross expenditure only it is voted by parliament. Net, that means credit recovery जो भी होगा, that is not voted by parliament. That credit and recovery जितना हमें एस्टिमेट किया हमें बताना है, और एक्चुअल में असल में कितना क्रेडिट और रिकवरी हमें we could get, that we have to indicate. That's all. No explanation also required because parliament approval we have not taken for that. Only gross. और एक एग्जाम्पल आपको बताना चाहता हूँ. Whenever estimate is there, for estimate you can when you indicate this requires the sanction of so and so, where you will be speaking, is it related to gross or net? Always, whenever those who work in finance section, they will be understanding that whenever you estimate sanction, you will be indicating the authority, you will see only gross, not net. Similar, on the same analogy, for gross only, we will the finance ministry will take the vote of parliament. So therefore, we need to explain only for gross, not net. और क्रेडिट एंड रिकवरी खाली हमें दिखाना है बस इतना ही. एनी अदर? सरला जी.
अनेक्सर के डिफेक्टिंग ऑफ बजटिंग क्या रहता है सर? इसमें और डिफरेंस बिटवीन यदि आता है तो इसमें और क्या पॉइंट्स लिखे जा सकते हैं सर, प्लीज?
ओके, खाली अनेक्सर के डिफेक्शन बजटिंग के बारे में मैंने जो लिमिट्स दिया है 500 lakhs, 10% of the grant or 250 lakhs, whichever is higher, or supplementary grant, 10 total supplementary grant not utilized, or 10% of the supplementary grant or 100 lakhs, whichever is higher. ये चारों पॉइंट्स आप लिख के these are the limits. इससे ज्यादा है then that will be called as deficient budgeting, and normally we will be giving need statement, but audit they will include certain statements. You normally in our accounts department we will see whether it is correct or not. Once it is correct, we will not say anything. We will simply ask them to include in the annexure K.
Okay, thanks sir.
I will check the chat box also.
Sir, please explain on debt head report.
On debt head report, yeah, actually in today's session, I thought of explaining the debt head report, but that it will be dealt separately because it will be a small topic, but it will not fit into appropriation accounts. That is why we omitted that. On some other day we will take, because that debt head report, it is related to our suspense heads. And for those suspense heads, we will be indicating certain certificates. Normally, accounts officer certificate normally will not give, but in the debt head report, our accounts officer is required to give certificate. So we will give certificate, and in 1 or 2 cases, the audit also they will certify. So that is why that debt head report is a very, very important document. We will definitely know about that debt head report. Normally it will come under short notes. Definitely we'll see that.
Okay. Any other doubts, please, or we'll wind up? Please give your feedback also. If there are no further doubts, then we'll wind up the session, sir.
One sec. Defection budgeting, okay. Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, from my side, all chart items also I saw.
Okay. On behalf of IRIFM, I thank Shri K. Damodar Prasad, sir, for taking up the session on appropriation accounts. Thank you so much, sir, and also have clarified many of doubts. Thank you all. Tomorrow we have session on BRS. Login time is 3 o'clock. Thank you all. Thank you so much.